Hey everybody, Bob Chick back with another edition of the Voice of Bodybuilding. We're fresh off the Olympia stage, this year held in Orlando, Florida. Once again, history was made. This edition brought to you once again by our good friends at Panada, ProFit Sport Solutions, and of course, Celsius, which I'm holding right here, the brand new Arctic Vibe Frozen Berry. And for those giving me crap that I was using a prop last time, I can assure you, cue the special effects. Oh, you heard that, folks? Freshness. See that? It's real, folks. Get a shipment every month. Anyway, all right, let's get into business here. First, before we go into the Olympia stuff, I will be leaving tomorrow for the Haney Games. It's held in Atlanta, Georgia. Once again, of course, at the Georgia Intercontinental Convention Center. That's been there for years. I think it's in its 9th year now. Haney puts on a great show out there. Lots of celebrities in attendance. I'll be dropping off a piece of a Panada equipment actually to my good friend Rock Shabazz and Shaquille O'Neal. I think you guys have heard of him. He was at the Olympia this year, along with my good buddy Dave Batista, who was the official Olympia ambassador this year. Great to have those guys back in attendance once again. Haney's going to live stream it this year, folks, so you can get that. Live streaming will be available, pay-per-view, call it what you wish, at LeeHaneyGames.com. So hopefully we'll see everybody there, all the fans in Atlanta. All right, we're going to kind of move quickly through this because there's a lot to cover. First, a shout-out to all the athletes that weren't able to make it there to the Olympia for various reasons across the board. Can't get into the country, injury, whatnot. Some things are just out of our control, folks. For those asking, Bob, can you do anything as the athlete's rep? Can the federation do anything? Can Jim Mannion do anything? Listen, folks, these are way above anything that we can handle. All we can do is give a letter of recommendation, whether it comes from the federation or whatever. I've written many of them over the years. The problem is you're dealing with international laws, treaties, things like that. It's way out of the bounds. There's nothing we can do. And of course, we have nothing to do with what people do in their personal life, any reasons that would keep them out of the country. So while it's sad to see that there are people that qualify for the Olympia, but they're not able to get here, there's nothing we can do. Big cry out there, well, why don't they have the Olympia out of the country every once in a while? That would solve the problem. Well, that wouldn't solve the problem because listen, Canada's even harder to get into than the U.S., but the overwhelming majority of athletes that compete in the Olympia are from the United States. Even the ones that are from other countries, a lot of them live in the U.S., so it makes no financial sense for Jake Wood and his team to fly, hypothetically, 220 people out of the country. The expenses would just be incredible, as opposed to flying, again, 50 or 60 or whatever it is into the country. So that's not going to work either. Listen, it works very well here in the U.S. It has for many years. Don't expect it's going anywhere anytime soon, although it is going to Las Vegas, Nevada, again, next year, folks. It's going to be the resorts. It's a great place, big theater type setting. So back to Vegas it is. I've always liked Vegas. I got a little soft spot. It just means Olympia time to me. And it's going to be earlier by a month. Next year, I believe the second week of October. All that information, of course, will be out, if it isn't already, at MrOlympia.com. So Olympia back to October. That solves a lot of problems with the scheduling. And back in Vegas. Now, a lot of speculation out this year. I shouldn't say this year, I should say this last week, with Nick Walker. Now, we gave Nick some recognition at the show. It was sad to see that he couldn't compete because of an injury. Listen, Nick's a fantastic bodybuilder. Definitely would have been contending for that top 5 in the Mr. Olympia. Unfortunately, he couldn't due to a hamstring tear. That said, I've seen some various interviews. I've heard some various things that it was pitched to Nick like, well, would you accept an invite, a special invite? And Nick, of course, said, well, sure, I'd accept a special invite. But he followed up with saying he thinks he's deserving of one. And I got to completely disagree with this one. Everybody that follows my stuff knows I am not a big fan of special invites, never have been. For the record, I wasn't even on board with Derek Lunsford getting a special invite. These guys need to go out there. They need to qualify and compete. There's an integrity to the process that gets destroyed, all right, when there's special invites that are just kind of thrown out there. The very word, the special invite, special, that means there should be special circumstances, okay? Somebody getting injured, be it Nick or anybody else, is not special. It's happened every year that we've ever had the Olympia in the what will be 60 years next year that we'll be celebrating, okay? Somebody's always out with an injury. That's not unique or special, but it's not deserving of a special invite either. I say you get out there and you pick a show, and we've got plenty of them throughout the year. If the Arnold's too early, that's cool. Go on another show. You got Big Steve's show, the New York Pro. There's Tampa. There's Chicago. There's shows out of the country. There's all kinds of shows that you can go on. Pick one and qualify. Here's the problem. If the basis for giving a special invite is that you couldn't go to the show because of an injury, well, listen, Nathan Dasher couldn't get in the country. Neither could Behruz Tabani. Brett Wilkin, he pulled out for whatever reason, whether it's his health or he felt it wasn't in his best interest. Ian Valieri pulled out. Maybe he should get a special invite, right? So the problem becomes is where do you stop and draw the line as to who's worthy and who's not? And I say nobody's worthy unless it's somebody from the past, it's an icon, somebody in a special circumstance type of a thing. The other year that Rami was going to compete in a show and it got canceled because of the COVID nonsense. Okay, well, listen, he established himself as a top guy. Nick's been around a couple of years, has done exceedingly well. We'll get into where I thought he would have placed in just a moment. But no, you got to get out there and you got to compete, brother. It's good for the Pro League. It's good for you. Get yourself back in action. Shouldn't have any problem qualifying for the Olympia. I think that's kind of a given for Nick Walker, and we'll see him on the stage in 2024, I'm sure. All right. All the negativity that's been going on around there, it's died down a little bit, thank God. But all you fans out there, listen, we get that you're very excited. We get that you're very into it. You're fans for a reason. That's great. But let's not get carried away. Death threats, like really? I mean, and these are going to Derek Lunsford and his family. Why would you be threatening his family? For what reason? Now, I know everybody's got a platform on social media. It's very easy to type in, right? Threats and things like that. This nasty stuff that's out there. Some of this stuff actually went to Whitney Jones because of the routine she put on. Like, really? If we really got there as a society where this is so important to anybody, it's a bodybuilding show. I know it's the Olympia. It's the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. Listen, I've lived for this stuff. I've been doing it for years, okay? I'm the biggest fan that there is of this sport, but I don't care how big of a fan you are. There's never any reason to put threats out to people. And by the way, none of these athletes voted, right? And you want to be mad at somebody, be mad at the judges. They're the ones that made the decision. But all Derek Lunsford do was show up and do exactly what he should have done. Try his best to win this title of Olympia champion. And that's just what he did. So please, enough with the negativity. Listen, I'm saying everything's got to be sunshine and rainbows. And you can certainly voice your displeasure with what the judges picked, or you thought this guy should have won, or that guy should have won. That's all fine. But don't ever take it out on the athletes that are competing. I don't care who they are, because it's not their fault that they won or lost. Okay? So let's just get past all that kind of stuff and move on, because it's absolutely ridiculous. It's abhorrent. And there's no reason for that in any sport. It's certainly not ours. Listen, speaking of that, in the 60-year history of the Olympia, we are a worldwide event. There's been people from all over the place. And for people crying politics and racism, really? Well, they made Derek win because he's a better ambassador than Hadi Choopan. Hadi Choopan won last year. They picked Derek because Hadi's from Iran. Hadi is from Iran last year. Before that, we had Big Ramy from Egypt, okay? He's not an American either. And his English has improved dramatically, but still, okay? There is no ambassador, okay? The only ambassador was Big Dave Batista, who was there shaking hands and kissing babies, okay? It's a nice title to give to somebody for the Olympia, and it's very cool. The guy who wins the Olympia, the guy who wins any show, the girl who wins any title at the Olympia, they don't automatically get bestowed upon this grand total of ambassador to the world. They don't have appearances. This ain't the Miss America, all right? You guys give him that title, okay? Whether he can speak a lick of English, which Hadi can't, whether it's marginal, whether he's in his own country the entire year, means absolutely nothing to the overall development of the sport or of the pro league or anything else for that matter, okay? So just take that out of your vocabulary and just don't even use the phrase. They're not ambassadors to anybody except themselves, okay? They're world champions, they're Olympia champions, they represent themselves. Yes, they do represent the pro league to a small degree, okay? And we expect certain things because the next thing I'm going to go into is exactly what you think, and that was Hadi's actions on stage. First and foremost, it was not a shining moment for Hadi, okay? It was not his best work on stage. I'm sure given the choice, he would take it back in 2 seconds. But listen, it's an emotional game for these guys and girls that are competing. They put a lot into this stuff, okay? Listen, this guy was the Mr. Olympia defending champion. So, yeah, I wasn't expecting him to be pleased when he lost. By the same token, yes, you do have a responsibility to a point to conduct yourselves at all time like a professional on stage. You are representing yourself, and you are representing the Pro League as a Pro League athlete. That said, let's not get carried away either, folks, okay? I've seen a lot of stuff out there. Do I think Hadi should be suspended? No. Should he be reprimanded? No. At best, he might get a letter from the Pro League that says, look, watch that stuff in the future. It's conduct unbecoming. You could be suspended in the future and all that kind of stuff. It's literally a slap on the wrist and a kind of a, don't do it again. Watch yourself. We expect better from you. That should be about it, okay? And you can go right back into history. Listen, there's been a whole bunch of displays on stage. Most notably, my good friend Flex Wheeler, he kind of laughs about it now. I think enough time's gone by. 1998, he does almost the exact same thing. It's actually probably a little worse on stage when Ronnie Coleman's declared the winner. And he takes his medal off right there, faces the crowd, and starts waving off, pointing, saying, no, I'm not number 2, I'm number 1. Okay? And then he walked off the stage. Listen, was it that big of a deal? Not really. I mean, if anything, it just reflects on the athletes themselves. And again, it's not their best moment on stage. But let's not get carried away either, everybody. Okay? This was not the most egregious thing I've ever seen. Holy crap, can you even believe that? And listen, he did give credit where credit's due to Derek. The second I announced Derek as the winner, as the new Mr. Olympia, Hadi was the first one there. They embraced. He said something to him. I obviously couldn't hear it from where I was. And I think he gave him a kiss on the forehead, right? In sportsmanship, he took the first picture. Great. I said, gentlemen, let's get some pictures because everybody's got a job to do out there. Got to make sure everybody gets their job done to its best, and they did. He took a picture, and then he started to take off, okay? He started taking his medal. Now, nobody else was moving, okay? Took his medal off, started heading out. By this time, I was heading over because I got to get a little bit closer to get the interview while the guys are taking another picture or two. I was calling for the guys that hit him most muscular. He took his medal off, and he started coming off the stage like he wanted to get out of there. You can hear me on the microphone if you watch the tape back, and I'm saying it. No, Hadi, stay there. We got to get some pictures. Hadi, don't go, stay there. He says to me, which nobody could hear because he didn't have a microphone. He says, no, I go, I don't come back. And I said, okay, well, it looks like he's got to go, so let's move on with pictures, right? And that was the end of it. I wasn't going to make a big deal out of it on the spot. Listen, if he's got to go, he's got to do what he's got to do. By the same token, this moment belonged to Derek Lunsford, okay? We're going to celebrate who is there, not who wasn't there. But again, everybody just calm down with it, okay? It wasn't that big of a deal, folks, all right? If that's what everybody's remembering, then we didn't do our job enough for this Olympia production. Let's get right into the Mr. Olympia. Okay, biggest question coming. I think it was pretty universally known that Samson was third. Everybody knows I love Samson. I've been a big supporter of his from day one. From the day he turned pro, I could see the potential in this guy. And he's got it all. He's got every attribute to be Mr. Olympia. The question has always been, can he get the conditioning to match those other guys? And the answer was no. He came in at 95%, looked great, moved up from 6th place to 3rd place this year. Fantastic. Congratulations, Samson. Again, this is to be celebrated, folks. Everybody makes it sound like it's the end of the world. This guy moved up 3 spots at the Olympia. I know Samson was pretty stoked about that. Of course he wanted to win. But at 95%, it wasn't enough against Hadi and Derek. But solid 3rd place. I don't think anybody has disputed that thus far. I haven't seen it. Let's focus on the top 2. Derek versus Hadi. Why does Derek beat Hadi? First and foremost, was it close? Yes, it was extremely close. And you have a 2-day event, a prejudging and a finals to boot. So how close was it? Well, let's just break it down because this is pretty much how the judges do it, all right? Okay, what makes the difference between winning and losing between these two guys? Okay, first and foremost, front poses. Definitely Hadi, all right? Thicker through the chest still. Derek needs a little bit of muscle maturity, which Hadi certainly has. Better in most of the front shots. Okay, big check mark to Hadi from the front. From the rear, Derek all day long. I don't think anybody disputes that, right? Hadi from the front, Derek from the rear shots, no question about it. Best back in the entire show, any division, Derek Lunsford. Now we go to the side. Well, you can kind of split this, okay? I like Hadi in the side chest. I like Derek in the side try. Let's call it even, all right? Abdominal shot, I'm going to give the edge to Derek. He's got that smaller waist and the bigger X-frame. Most muscular, definitely Hadi, no question about it. He was killing Derek with that front hands clasp, most muscular. It's a trademark shot for Hadi Choopan. All right, so now it's tied. Now what do we do? Well, you're going to go to the three things that I've been saying from day one make the biggest difference in bodybuilding, and that's shape, symmetry, and proportion. Check mark to Derek on all three. Better shape, better symmetry, better proportion. Okay, nod to Derek. The only thing left is presentation. Again, check mark to Derek. Hadi did a guest posing routine to the same music he had last year. Not that the music makes any difference, really. But as a pure presentation of your physique, walking from side to side, hitting most musculars, was probably not the display of his physique that he could have done. Derek, on the other hand, did a very nice routine, showcased his physique, very good, right to the music and all that stuff. Now, before you jump on me for saying, yeah, but Bob, we've been saying this for years, he should count the posing routine, it should count the scoring and all that stuff. You're not scored on the posing routine, but you are judged. You're being judged every minute that you're on that stage. They're judging you. Everything's taken into consideration. So no, there isn't an individual score for that. We got rid of that years ago. We don't need to rehash all that. I was all in favor of it. But you are being judged at all times. And both these guys were being judged. So if you go through piece by piece and you give these poses to these guys and you want to keep score that way, fine. To me, it was tied virtually at the end. All right? Yes, you can pick out poses. So if everybody keeps putting those poses out of Hadi and a front double by or a most muscular shot, I can post shots from Derek from the rear, and it's going to show a different tail. Now, the age-old, our bodybuilding shows one from behind. Yes and no. They're one from the front, the back, the side, the posing routine, right? It's very important, and the reason that saying, if you will, has been around for so many years is because you can truly see somebody's conditioning from the back more than the front. And obviously with lines in the glutes, if you can get your conditioning down to that type of a degree, all right, that you got lines in your rear from top to bottom, yes, that's going to make a big difference. Both guys were obviously in great condition from the rear, but Derek had a much better back double by and back lat spread. All right, so that's why I've got Derek beating Hadi, but it wasn't by much. Listen, if it went to Hadi, I wouldn't have blinked an eye. I really wouldn't. I mean, I don't think there'd be any outrage from anybody, but you didn't hear any cascade of boos when Derek's name was announced as the winner. If you were there, or if you see the tape, listen, there's not some great cry of injustice that goes on. It's clearly after the show from Hadi's fans around the world, especially from overseas, okay? And I expect that. That's fine, okay? You can choose to, support your guy and, he was screwed and he was this and he was that. That's fine. Just keep it respectful, everybody, okay? Again, no more of this nonsense going against Derek or his family of all people, like they had anything to do with anything. So let's just leave that where it is. Okay, big question mark. If Nick Walker was in the show, where do I have him placing? And I think that's a very easy answer to me. I don't see him beating Derek, Hadi, or Samson. I think he's a solid fourth-place finisher. Nothing to be upset about. Listen, fourth place in the Olympia is pretty good. Could he have beaten any of those three guys? Not in my opinion, because the shape, the symmetry, and the proportion, three things that are paramount to placing higher, he loses against all three of those guys, okay? Maybe he beats Brandon because Brandon, although, thank God Brandon was able to get himself together. Everybody knows he had some hospital issues, which almost kept him out of the running. How this guy ended up in shape to get on the Olympia stage is completely beyond me. He was in the hospital, couldn't eat anything. They had to do a scope down the throat, make sure everything was cool because he had some issues going on in there. Got the clearance from the doctors and the pro league, but how he showed up in any kind of conditioning, let alone he was able to take fourth place in the Olympia, is a miracle. So big tip of the cap to Brandon for that. And listen, anytime you're a former Olympia champ, I mean, you're going to be somebody to contend with. But I believe Nick might have squeaked above Brandon. He has beat him before. But I got him in solid fourth place. I mean, if anybody wants to put up shots, of Nick at the Arnold or one of his best showings against these guys, go ahead. Maybe that's a good debate for the next Voice of Bodybuilding edition. Andrew Jack made huge strides this year, moves up a few places. His only problem was conditioning. But let me tell you something. Him and Samson will absolutely be battling for the Olympia title somewhere in the next couple of years. These guys bring that conditioning. They got height. They've got size. They've got the shape, the symmetry, and the proportion, the muscularity. All they got to do is get that conditioning on point, and we got a different battle on our hands. So calling it right now, but you are going to see the battle of these two guys for that Olympia title coming up at some point in the near future. Big props to Crezo, Michael Crezo. Fantastic. Brought his physique up. Still got to bring that back up. And the glutes and the overall leg development, the match was ridiculous. His arms are ridiculous, but they're too big. And it puts him out of balance, but he made great strides, and good for him. Antonio, man. Antonio Burton, fantastic. How about this guy placing in the top 10? Maybe one of the smallest guys on stage. He's a blown-up 212, but presented a very nice physique, and he was rewarded for it. Regan Grimes, I thought, could have contended a little bit higher. I would have liked to have seen him up maybe with Brandon and Jack and those guys. Beautiful physique. We've covered this before. Great symmetry, size, proportion, shape, muscularity. He's got everything. Conditioning, still the Achilles heel to young Regan, but he's got a lot of time ahead of him. I suspect we'll see him make those improvements this year, and he's a guy that could climb up there and be in contention in a few years once he gets that muscle maturity and that conditioning. And Charles Griffin rounding out our top 10 in the Mr. Olympia. What a great year for Charles, winning a show, qualifying for the Olympia, and placing in the top 10. So congratulations to your top 10 Olympians, and of course, our new Olympia champion, Derek Lunsford. How about that, folks? And Classic, that was an easy one, pretty much. Bumstead all day long again, puts number 5 in the books. I thought Urs might mount a bigger challenge, but all the gains in his offseason I didn't really see on stage. Whether he lost that dieting, I don't know. But he's a young guy, 24, 25 years old. He's got nothing but time ahead of him. He will challenge in the future. The question is whether will Bumstead still be around defending the title, or will it be an open slate if Chris calls it a day at some point. Ramon Dino, what can I say? Again, another great finish right there with Chris. Unfortunately, Chris just a little bit too good. Ramon continues to make progress. His arms are so big that, again, he's had the last couple of years to try to get that back and the rest of them to catch up. But Bumstead's just in a league of his own right now, folks, and he's going to go as long as he can. Breon, I've been begging you, go into 212. He wanted to stay in this class. He wants to get that title back. He's got 2. Can't take it away from him, but the class has outgrown him a little bit. These guys that are ahead of him now are starting to distance themselves from the pack. Might have been the best Breon that we've ever seen, but he could only muster a 4th-place finish. Love to see him in the 212. He could be a contender there. Maybe he'll pull that trigger. Once they bumped that weight cap up, it gave him full license to go, I think maybe that gives me a better physique. I'm going to give it one more shot. So hopefully he goes to the 212 because he could contend to be another guy after Derek Lunsford just made history, being the first 2-time Olympian in 2 different divisions. Well, Derek broke that barrier down. Breon could easily walk through that door. All right, and to men's physique. Ryan Terry has had every single placing there is to be gotten at the Olympia except for first place, and he finally put it all together. The difference wasn't really his physique. It was in his posing and his presentation. Very interesting for everybody that competes out there. How important is that? Well, in my opinion, it got him an Olympia title. He came out, all these guys are kind of doing that front pose, but they all twisted aside, try to give themselves a little waist. Ryan came out there, kind of stood there like that Superman pose, we'll call it, with the hands on the hips, dead straight on, but he's got great proportions and symmetry and everything. He's the poster boy for men's physique, in my opinion. He's the Jerry West of men's physique. What I mean by that is, if you were to make a logo for men's physique, like Jerry West was the logo still to this day, in the NBA as the consummate basketball player back in the 50s and 60s, you could literally do that with Ryan Terry. He's everything that you're supposed to be for a men's physique champ. Finally got the call in the winner's circle for his first Olympia win. Congratulations. The pride of the United Kingdom. So good for you, Ryan. Brandon Hendrickson. Big apologies to Brandon. This is my fault. I announced you a couple times as a 2-time former Olympia champ. You're a 3-time former Olympia champ. I knew that, but 2 was written down. I should have caught that. But in my own defense, buddy, there's 500 things going on stage at that time. So sorry. You know, I always got you, bro. But great finish. I mean, it's exactly what we expected. At the end of the day, the judges went with Ryan. So nothing to be ashamed about in the second place finish. The champ, Aaron Banks, in the third place. Aaron, man, he just opened this door by putting that title on the line. You don't ever put the title on the line before the Olympia. You were defending champ. You opened the door. Unfortunately, Kyron Holden walked through it at the Legion and beat you fair and square. I was there. I called that shot. But it really took a knock out of you. I don't think this was the best Aaron that we've seen, but he was still formidable in the third place. Again, congratulations. I know it's not what he wanted, but still in the top 3 for the champ. And the rest of the crew looked fantastic, of course. I mean, these guys are all in great shape. Manuel Hunter, Diogo Montenegro, Corey Morris, Kyron in 7th. I was hoping he'd be up a little bit higher. And the return of the 4-time champ, Jeremy Buendia. He lit that stage up and got himself 4 titles years ago. 5 years off, makes a comeback, and still in the mix. Listen, he's still in the top 10 in an 8th place finish. Fantastic. So good for him. Represented himself and did very well. I know he was hoping for the big fairy tale story of coming back and earning another Olympia title, but they're hard to come by, folks. Let's face it, this is not an easy task. In fact, he could hold his own with these young guns coming up. Good for Jeremy Buendia. All right, folks. Well, the 212. This was interesting because Sean Clarita, I think anybody before the show would have just given him the title and says, well, listen, without Kamal in there, who was out due to his brother cancer diagnosis, felt it was better to stay out, take care of family business. I don't think a lot of people gave anybody a real shot. Breon, I thought, would have contended, but again, he elected to go back in the Classic. So who did it leave? Well, Keon Pearson was in there, and if anybody's seen this guy's physique, you know he's trouble. All he had to do was checkmark the box of conditioning, and he was going to be trouble for the Giant Killer. And guess what? That's exactly what he did. He checked that box, and he was huge. He's huge in the class. He's a lot taller than Clarita. He's wider. His proportions are, you can make trophies out of this guy's physique, okay? He's got proportions of a cartoon character. Tiny waist, big shoulders, flaring thighs. Probably the best shape and proportion out of anybody in the show. I don't care what division it is. He's a freak. And now he's Olympia champ. 212 Olympia champ. Takes out the 2-time defending champ in Sean Clarita. Sean looked good. He wasn't 100% though. He was not 100%. I talked to Sean at the show. He said he was up 6-7 pounds. I thought that was a mistake. He doesn't have the frame to put on 6-7 pounds. That's a problem. You can only pack on so much muscle into that frame. He's already overdoing it in terms of muscularity. That's why he's the champ. But I think it was too much. It made the midsection a little blockier. Standing next to Keon, that was going to be a huge problem. And for the first time, I did see some little bit of folds on that in that lower back area of Sean Clarita. I've never seen that before. My advice is always the right ones to the champ. I'd bring it back down. Whatever that 6-7 pounds is, it was only in the midsection. Didn't help you out. But you need those freaky proportions to be in contention. These two could be battling for years to come. So Angel Calderon Frias in the 3rd place, solid. Kareth Bajo, again, the guy just continues to improve. And Ahmad Ashkanani, he's a veteran competitor. He's been in that top 5 many times at the Olympia. Continues to impress. All right, we had an upset in wheelchair bodybuilding. Everybody gave this to King Kong Kelly. He's won everything there is to win. I've lost track of how many shows he's won over his career, 23 or 24 now, I think. He's the only Olympia champ we've ever had in wheelchair. He's so dominant, but actually got some competition this year, and hats off to the beast, Nick Scott, the wheelchair chairman. He got a dozen of these guys together, and I tell you what, the competition has raised so much higher than it was just a few years ago that Harold finally had himself some competition. And Karol Maluski, okay, that's Carol with a K. Carol, he's from Poland, okay? Nobody heard of this guy before. Well, guess what? Everybody knows who he is now because he beat Harold King Kong Kelly and gives himself an Olympia championship. He's wheelchair champ for the 2023 here at the Olympia. Good for him. Man, he's a big dude. He's got a lot of muscle, man. I tell you what, I don't think Harold was at 100%, but he wasn't far off. But he was definitely on the money. And to me, it was an easy call, easy 1-2 call. I don't know how much longer Harold's going to do this. He's been doing it forever. I guess he'll reevaluate and kind of see where he's at. But if he calls it a day, I mean, listen, man, you got to give it to the kid. He's done absolutely phenomenal. And he's literally the face of wheelchair bodybuilding. All right, folks, we're running out of time, so I'm just going to quickly give some props. Oksana Grishina comes back, puts number 5 on the board, 5-time Olympia champ over Taylor Learmont, who was the talk of the show. She's a rookie. She came in here off the Legion. She had the best routine of the night by far. By far. She brings that physique up a little bit. She could go on a run for 10 years. Nobody's going to touch her. Okay, but those two. And I got to give 2 shout-outs. Whitney Jones, former Olympian. Missy Truscott, defending champ and Olympian. Both of them went out with injury. Missy right on stage, unfortunately. But they'll be back, I'm sure. Missy, maybe she goes in a different division. She kind of blew out a knee. Okay, maybe that's probably not smart to be doing these moves anymore. But guess what? We got other divisions. She could go in figure. She could go in women's physique. I'd love to see her in women's physique. Speaking of women's physique, Sarah Villegas takes the title back from Natalia Abraham Coelho. These two keep trading back and forth. That's 3 victories for Sarah. Andrea Shaw continues to dominate. Not even close. No disrespect to the other athletes, but she's just cleaning house, man. Puts number 4 in the bank. She's trying for Linda's record and ultimately for Iris's record. Good luck with that, with 10 victories. But Angela Yo takes up a runner-up position once again. In wellness, it was Francielle Matos, the only wellness champ we've ever had. She makes it 3 in a row over Isabel Nunez. Figure, what can you say about Sydney, man? Sydney Gillen, her 7th Olympia victory. And again, if there's anybody who's got dominance in any one particular division, it's her. She beat up on everybody, including Jessica Reyes Padilla, who's no slouch. Not only has she been runner-up in the Olympia before, but she won the Masters Olympia title just a few months ago in Romania. As good as she is, you just can't touch Sydney, man. Again, talk about cartoon proportions. She's got it all. I mean, there's no question about it. And in bikini, which is probably the toughest division in terms of former Olympians in there, it was Jennifer Dory coming back, reclaiming her title that she lost before. So she's back in the winner's circle. The incumbent champ, Maureen Blanquisco, taking second place. Looked fantastic, but Jen Dory just bringing it all at this Olympia. Dehi Jian, Laura Lee Chapanos, and Elisa Piccini, another former Olympian, rounds out the top 5. All right, folks, well, that's going to wrap it up for this edition of The Voice of Bodybuilding. I'm off to the Haney Games. See everybody in Atlanta, and we'll see everybody soon.